I'm so happy that you guys came to join us tonight. We're so excited. We've been planning, preparing for you, and it's great to see all of you guys here tonight. If you haven't been here before, I'm just going to give a short talk. We're going to go into a time of discussion and prayer, and then you're going to be free to go. That's kind of how we do these things. But last semester when I talked, we kind of went back all the way to the beginning of creation. We started in the very beginning to try to figure out why God created us as women. And I kind of tried to answer that question. What was I made for? What was the purpose that women were made for? And we talked about some different things. We talked about how God made us as women to work. That was one of the first things he made us to do. God made us to mother. We have this unique ability to nurture and to be mothers. God made us to help, specifically in that husband and wife relationship. It's a special calling that we have as women to help. And God made us to submit in that marriage relationship as well. And so I want to kind of continue on as I started in the spring about talking about what we were made for as women. And again, we kind of have to go all the way back to the beginning once again to figure this out and try to discover what our purpose was as women. So if you remember Genesis 1:1, it says God created the heavens and the earth, right? So God created everything we can see from nothing. And the way God chose to do this was really interesting. God chose to create everything by speaking. He spoke, and with his words, he created everything that we can see, right? He made darkness and light. He said, let there be light. He said, let there be space between the land and the sea. Let there be birds and fish and animals of every kind. And God could have done this however he wanted to. He could have made it appear out of nothing. He could have made a big explosion and things appear, right? But he chose to speak things into existence. He chose to connect his words to his creative power. So he speaks, and whatever he says is done. His words really have the ultimate power. So everything we see, everything we know on this earth came to be because God spoke it into existence, even when it comes to us as humans. It says this in Genesis 1:26-27. Then God said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So God creates humans. It says that he formed man from the dust of the ground. Then he breathed the breath of life into him. He created woman from Adam's rib. And God created all the wonderful creatures that we can see, all the fish, all the birds, all the bugs, all of the nature that we see God created. But when it came to humans, he gave us a special ability that sets us apart from the rest of the things that he created. And what sets us apart, one of the things that sets us apart from the things that God created, is that God gave us the ability to speak. He didn't give this to nature. He didn't give this to animals, but he did give this ability to men and women. He gave us the ability to speak and the ability to use words just like he does. And I think just thinking of it kind of in these simple terms gives a lot of clarity to us in our role as humans and as women. The fact that God gave us the ability to speak and not nature, not animals, right? Again, we're supposed to reign over creation. Humans are above nature and animals. But also, this gives clarity to our role as women because God gave us the ability to speak. There's no doubt about this. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't unintentional. God intentionally gave us as women this special ability to speak. So tonight, I wanted to fill in our little blank, I was made to, with speak. Because it's so clear when you look at the Bible, when you look at us as women, and women in the Bible, that we were made to speak as women. God gave us the ability to speak, not on accident, but on purpose. And as women, we can use our voices for his glory. And it's not just an ability that God gave us. This is really a responsibility because our words have power. Now, the Bible has a lot to say on this subject. The words talk, tongue, speech, speak, words, mouth, silence are used 3,500 times in the Bible. So there's a lot the Bible has to say about our words, about the way we speak, way too much to cover, even in 6 weeks worth of time. But just for tonight, I just wanted to start off with 3 simple things about our words. And they're 3 P's if you're taking notes. So the first thing is that our words have power. So after God creates Adam, even before Eve is there, God gives Adam this task and this ability to name things. Right away, Adam's words have power. God gives Adam the task of naming the animals, and Adam gets to pick. Whatever he says, it will be. Just as God spoke and it came to be, Adam gets to speak, and whatever he says, giraffe, gorilla, elephant, it will be. So soon after he was created, he gets this chance to name things, just as God did. As humans, we're made in the image of God, and so just the principle still applies to this day, that we speak and it comes to be. We get to label things. Our words have power. Our key verse for tonight, and really every night going forward this semester and this next 6 weeks, is going to be Proverbs 18:21. And it says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits." Now, it says the power of the tongue. But the 2024 version of this verse would say that death and life are in the power of the thumbs too, right? Because whether you say them or whether you type them, whether you say them intentionally or whether you say them unintentionally, your words have power. Just like Adam, we have the ability to name things with our words, and we shouldn't take that lightly because the names we give things stick. Except we're not naming animals like Adam was. We're naming situations. We're naming our circumstances. We're putting labels on people often. We name things, and then we're also named things by other people. And often we believe what others say about us, what others have called us, really for better or for worse. I don't know about you, but I've heard so many stories of people saying, a teacher in grade school told me this, and either it devastated them or it was a great thing in their life. So often we rise or we fall to the words that other people have spoken over us. When you make a mistake or you fail, if you've had words of death spoken over you in the past, maybe they flashed to your mind that person said I was the failure. They were right. They said that I am stupid. I am a failure. But the reverse is true too. We can speak life-giving labels over people. We believe oftentimes those labels, those things that people say about us, and other people are going to believe what we say about them. I have a simple example of this from my own life. Some of you in this room probably know this, but I played volleyball a lot growing up. So I played through junior high, high school, and then I went on to play at our community college at IVCC. So I was just super excited to play there, and I didn't have much plans for afterwards what I was going to do. So one day my coach pulled me in her office when I was in my 2nd year of playing, and she asked me, what are you thinking? Are you going to go to another school? Do you want to play somewhere else? And honestly, I didn't really have any plans at that point. I was like, I don't know, I'll probably just go to a state school or something, and I don't really have any plans. And she said, well, do you want to play volleyball somewhere else? And I said, I wasn't sure. And she said, well, you're good enough, right? And that made me stop and think, because honestly, no, I didn't know I was good enough. Nobody had ever told me that I was good enough until she did. So when she told me, you're good enough, those words had power. It's crazy to think that just that little sentence, those few words she spoke to me, it did change my life. It changed the trajectory of my life, because I did end up going to play at another school. And I did play volleyball at a different school. So it changed the trajectory of my life, but it also changed my perception of myself. Something I didn't even consider, it became reality just because she said that. And something I didn't even think until she said it over me, just from a simple conversation. And what's interesting is, like, I didn't change in that moment, right? Like, I didn't become a better volleyball player. I didn't learn how to hit better. But in the same way, I did change in that moment. Because of those words she spoke over me, because of her authority, she said I was good enough, and I believed her when she said that. I saw myself as good enough because she spoke those words over me. So never underestimate the power of your words. You know, for my coach, Julie, that was just a Tuesday. That was just talking to me for a minute in her office. But for me, I still remember that 15 years later. It impacted me so greatly. So our words have so much power. The second thing is our words have potential. So words can give you a successful life, and words can destroy your life. Words can strengthen your relationships, and words can damage your relationships. Words can hurt, and words can heal. If I asked you, about some of the most painful things you've gone through in your life, some of the things would be things you've gone through. Some of the things would be something someone's done to you. But for a lot of us, it would be what people have said to us, or said about us, or said in the heat of the moment in a fight. Words can be an incredible source of pain. And isn't it crazy that some of us, we carry wounds from people who don't even remember saying things to us? Or if we passed them on the street, they wouldn't even know who we were. Maybe it was like a teacher from a long time ago. They wouldn't even remember you, but those words stick so deeply with you. I remember one time I had a coworker, and the one day he said, "Hey, Amy, I have a question for you. Why do you talk so slow?" And I don't know if he was joking. Like, still to this day, I was like, I don't know. But then I'm like, do I talk slow? Like, do I need to speak faster? Are you guys thinking I talk slow now that I said that? I don't know. He just said that in an off moment, and I still remember it years later. Like, that's in the back of my head. Do I talk slow? Just those things people say can stick with us for so long. I'm sure he doesn't even remember saying that. Maybe it was a joke, but it stuck with me for so long. Some people say words are weapons, and that's kind of true, right? Words are amoral, so they're not good or evil. I've been saying words are powerful, right? But really, this isn't that powerful, right? This is a dictionary. This is a whole bunch of words. This isn't that powerful. It's not a good weapon if I wanted to hurt you. I could smack you kind of hard with it, but I'm not going to hurt you that bad, right? It's when a person uses these words that they become powerful. A knife in the hands of a murderer brings death, but a knife in the hands of a surgeon brings healing. Words are powerful because they have potential. They have the potential to create or to destroy, to heal or to hurt, to encourage or to discourage. Words can be true or they can be lies. They can be kind or they can be unkind. They can be hopeless or they can be hopeful. It all depends on the person who's using them. James, the brother of Jesus, he spoke to the potential of our words. And this is a long passage, but it's really good. It's perfect for what we're talking about. It says this in James 3:3-12. We can make a large horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth, and a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go, even though the winds are strong. In the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches. But a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire, and among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a flame of fire. It is a whole world of wickedness, corrupting your entire body. It can set your whole life on fire, for it is set on fire by hell itself. People can tame all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and fish, but no one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil, full of deadly poison. Sometimes it praises our Lord and Father, and sometimes it curses those who have been made in the image of God. And so blessing and cursing come pouring out of the same mouth. Surely, my brothers and sisters, this is not right. Does a spring of water bubble out with both fresh water and bitter water? Does a fig tree produce olives or a grapevine produce figs? No, and you can't draw fresh water from a salty spring. Isn't it wild that something so small, something so tiny, you can't even see right now, my tongue, something so tiny can cause so much destruction. It's like that tiny bit in the horse's mouth, right? That tiny bit can move this massive 1,000-pound animal, whatever way you tug it, just by that little thing. One tiny spark can set a whole forest on fire and cause so much destruction. A tiny word spoken can cause so much damage. Today, a few words posted online can destroy your entire career, your entire legacy, your entire life. A hurtful comment can destroy a relationship with someone. A label that we speak over someone can stick with them for years to come. But the good news is, the reverse is also true. There's the potential for devastation and death, but there's also a life-giving potential for health and for flourishing when we speak life. Just like a tug on the reins, it can change a horse's whole direction. You can change the way you speak, and you can have a whole different life. You can change the way you speak, and you can have a whole different marriage just by that little tug. Our words have the power of life and of death, the potential to bring greatness or destruction. So the power is there and the potential is there. We get to choose. Proverbs 18:21, again, in the Message version, says it like this: words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. So we are not victims of the words that come out of our mouths. We get to choose. It's not as if there's people who just speak death and there's people who just speak life, and that's how it is. We get the choice to choose the words that we use if we want to speak life or speak death. So it's my goal in the next few weeks that we're going to look at some women in the Bible and learn from them and how they spoke, for better or for worse. But when I was preparing for this one, I couldn't help but think of the story of Naomi. If you remember, Naomi is Ruth's mother-in-law, and she has a pretty devastating story. So when we meet Naomi in the Bible, her family is her husband, then she has 2 sons, and they're both married. So she has 2 daughter-in-laws. And there's a famine in the land she lives in. So they're moving to a completely distant country. They have to leave because there's no food where they're at. On the way, her husband passes away. So Naomi's now a widow. When they get there, over the course of the next few years, both of Naomi's sons die. So Naomi is just left with her 2 daughter-in-laws living in a land that she's not even from. There was a famine where she lived in. And so she's in this moment where she's begging her daughter-in-laws to leave her. And she says, I'm old. I'm not going to have any more sons. You can't marry, I'm not going to make another son for you to marry. You might as well go back to your family, get married again and have kids with someone else, but leave me. And, it's this intense scene of hugging and crying and embracing. And Orpah, her daughter-in-law, does end up leaving her and going back to where she was from. But Ruth, why we love her, she's so loyal and loves Naomi so much that she stays with her. And after this scene unfolds, this is the next thing that happens. In Ruth 1:19-21, it says, "So the 2 of them continued on their journey. When they came to Bethlehem, the entire town was excited by their arrival. 'Is it really Naomi?' the women asked. 'Don't call me Naomi,' she responded. 'Instead, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty.'" Oops. Yes, okay, that was it. Okay, so the name Naomi means pleasant and gentle. But at this stage in her life, Naomi did not feel like this was an accurate representation of her. She didn't feel like that name fit her. So she chose a completely different name. She just chose to be called Mara, which means bitter. Because of the difficult circumstances in her life, she chose to speak this over her life, to call her life what she felt, and to change her name to bitter. So she chooses Mara. But thankfully, Naomi's story does not end there. And if you've ever read the entire story, you know it's this amazing redeeming story of God and how he redeems Ruth and their family. And at the end of this book, Ruth is taken in by Boaz, their kinsman redeemer, and they get married, and Ruth ends up having a son. And Naomi gets to hold her grandson. And this is what it says about him. Naomi took the baby and cuddled him to her breast, and she cared for him as if he were her own. The neighbor women said, "Now at last, Naomi has a son again," and they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse and the grandfather of David. And eventually Jesus would come from that line. That's what's so amazing about that story. So Naomi has a son again, they said, right? Naomi, not Mara. At some point in Naomi's story, she chose to go back to being called Naomi. Her friends were calling her Naomi again, not Mara. And I don't know what point in her life when she chose it, if it was when things started to get better, or maybe it was before that. But just like Naomi, it's our choice. We get to choose what we want to be called, what we want to name our life. We can be Naomi or we can be Mara. We can speak life or death, but it's our choice. You can speak life or death over your marriage, over your children, your circumstances, your future. You get to choose whether it's Mara or it's Naomi, whether it's poison or fruit. So there's so much potential for our words, but ultimately it's our choice. So our words have power, they have potential, and then last, our words have purpose. As women, we were made to speak, and we're uniquely positioned to speak as women, as daughters, mothers, sisters, grandmothers, aunts, nieces, friends, teachers, nurses, coaches. Who we speak to, what we speak, and how we speak is all specific to us as women. Who we speak to, each season of life we go through, God has put unique relationships in our lives. God puts different people in our lives that we have the opportunity to speak life into. We all have a unique circle of people and relationships surrounding us at any given time. Some of us in this room, you have a husband. Some of you have children. Some of you have grandchildren. Some of you have nieces and nephews. All of us have acquaintances, coworkers, friends that surround each and every one of us. We all have people around us that we have the opportunity to speak life into. And not only that, our position as women is specific and it carries a special weight to it, the words that we say. If you're a teacher, man, your words have a special weight, whether you're a teacher in Acts Kids or in a school. For some reason, the words of a teacher matter so much to children. It's such a critical time in their lives to be able to speak into. If you're a wife, no one can speak life into your husband the way you can. If you have children, no one can speak life into your children the way you can. So we have this special and this specific opportunity as women to speak life into others. So who we speak to is important. What we speak is important. Because we should be speaking something, right? As women, we have the ability to speak. We have this responsibility to use our words in a way that honors God. I've been saying already, speak life a lot. We want to speak life. But maybe you're like, I don't even know what that means. Does that just mean being happy and positive all the time? What does it look like? What does it sound like for somebody to speak life? And that's why I wanted to do this for the next 5 weeks after that, because I think a lot of us don't really know what speaking life means, what it sounds like. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to break it down and we're going to make it really practical in the next few weeks. So the next 5 weeks, we're going to be talking about the what. And not just me. We have some other gifted women who are going to teach us over the next few weeks. And we're going to be talking about what it means practically to speak life. We're going to be talking about how we should speak the gospel, how we should speak wisdom, we should speak encouragement, we should speak truth, we should speak praises. There's so much that God wants us to be speaking. So we're going to be talking about that in detail in the weeks to come. How we speak is just as important as what we speak. God made us to be women for a reason. We are not men. We don't look like men. We don't need to sound like men either. We need to, if you haven't already, discover and really embrace our God-given feminine and motherly voice. We don't need to try to speak like men. God made us to speak like women. And there's so many people on this earth who they've never experienced the warmth of a loving mother who speaks life into them, who speaks encouragement and wisdom to them. And I believe God is calling all of us to step into who He made us as women and choose to use our words to speak life to those around us. So our words, they have power, they have potential, they have purpose. The power of life and death is in our tongue, and we get to choose. So I just want to invite you to begin to notice over these next few weeks, begin to pay attention to what are you speaking. Maybe you never really have stopped to think about this, or maybe you've never really thought about the fact that your words do have so much power. So I pray that in the next 2 weeks, you'll recognize when you're speaking life and when you're speaking death. What are you speaking? Are your words encouraging? Are they discouraging? Are you using your words to build people up, or do you use your words to tear people down? We've all spoken death. We all speak death, probably every single day, right? We've all said things that we regret. We've all said things we wish we could take back, sent a text we wish we could unsend, right? But I think for some of us, this is a really personal struggle, because you can make a habit, you can make a lifestyle out of speaking death. You can be like Naomi and just choose, I'm Mara, I'm bitter, this is the way it's going to be. You can choose to speak death. And for some of you in this room, maybe you don't necessarily struggle with speaking death as much, but you need to start speaking life. Maybe you don't struggle so much with saying hurtful things or things you regret, but maybe you just don't say the things you should say, or maybe you don't always know what to say. Maybe you don't speak up as often as you should, and you just need the courage and the confidence to speak life and speak into the relationships that God has put in your life. I think it's interesting how the Bible makes that, gives us that imagery that it can be poison or fruit. So what does poison do? Poison kills everything it touches. So your words can be poison, and you can kill every good thing that God has put in your life. You can kill all the relationships in your life by spewing poison on them day after day. But your words can also be fruit. They can be healthy, they can be life-giving, and they can bring so much health and just wisdom to the people around you. So we're going to kind of process through this in our discussion time tonight. The cool thing about a space like this is oftentimes on Sunday when we hear a message, we hear it and we leave. But tonight we have a few minutes where we can kind of process through, think how it applies to you, find your own application, and talk with the people at your table. So what's going to happen next is we're just going to go into a time of discussion. And tonight's going to be super simple. I just have 3 questions for you. And you're going to have a little discussion with your table. And then we're going to end just with prayer. So this is a great space. If you have something going on in your life that you want prayer for, we would love to pray for you. So feel free to share that with your table. They would love to be praying with you over the next couple weeks until we meet again. But I encourage you to just share what's going on and to be praying for the people at your table. But the discussion questions tonight are just going to be these 3. Okay, let's start off. Tell us your name. And then, would you describe yourself more of a talker or a listener? So what's your personality? Do you like to listen more? Do you like to talk more? Second, what avenues has God given you to speak life into? So kind of just like give us a little snapshot of what season of life you're in. Are you a mom? Are you a husband? Are you a student? Are you a boss? What are those relationships that God has put in your life right now where you can think of the opportunity to speak into other people's lives? And then lastly, kind of like I just touched on, what do you think, just first thought, what do you need to start doing more of? Do you need to stop speaking death, or do you need to start speaking life? What do you think as far as who you are, what God would bring to mind for that question?